Hello, everyone. It's your host, Amanda Eke, and I have some amazing news. Starting this fall, The Poet Speaks is coming to your TV screens. Yes, that's right. After 8 amazing seasons as a podcast, The Poet Speaks with Amanda Eke is now a TV show, airing on the Archaeology Channel's new streaming service, Heritage. Everyone get ready for a visual feast of spoken word performances and deep dives into the minds of poets from all over the world. Now, something extraordinary is coming, and you won't want to miss a single moment. Stay tuned. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Poet Speaks podcast, the #1 spoken word poetry podcast in the world. Don't forget. Now, our next guest is the winner of numerous grants from the Staten Island Council of the Arts, the NYC Department of Cultural Affairs, NYC Office for the Prevention of Hate Crimes, and NYC Commission of Human Rights, to name a few. He has been on 6 national slam teams, is a co-founding editor of Great Weather for Media and NYSAI Press, co-founder of Poetry in the Park, WORDPLAY, Creating Space and Poetry in Motion. He has released 2 full-length, and his new chapbook, Let Go, is out now by Neuronautic Press. Everyone, please welcome to the Poet Speaks podcast, Thomas Fucaloro. Thomas, how are you?
I'm doing good today on this Thursday morning. Thank you so much. How are you doing? Good?
I'm doing pretty good, Well, I'm doing a lot better now that I get to talk to you. So tell me a little bit, before we get into it, I have a lot of questions. Your bio is just beyond fascinating. But first and foremost, tell me, where are we talking to you from? Give the longitudinal, latitudinal. No, I'm just kidding. Where are we talking to you from today?
I am based out in Staten Island, New York.
Yes, that accent came out. That yes. Staten Islander. Is Staten Island, that's the Family Guy. Family Guy takes place in Staten Island, correct? Am I wrong or right?
I am not sure. I don't think it does. I think it's Long Island, maybe.
Long Island. Okay, for sure.
I get confused with that spot all the time.
For sure. Tell us, Staten Island is an island kind of based off of New York City. It's considered one of the boroughs of New York City, right?
Yes. It's often considered the forgotten borough.
I was about to say, I feel like for folks that are not from the city, right? If you probably think, what's the borough, like I don't know, like Bronx, right? What people think of those names, right? I don't even know the boroughs off the top of my head, but I think Staten Island, definitely people don't recognize it. What is Staten Island? Is it born and bred in Staten Island? Where were you from originally?
I was born in Brooklyn, lived there for like a couple of years, but pretty much raised. I would say I'm homegrown Staten Island.
Homegrown, nice. Now tell us a bit about the kind of poetry writing community out in Staten Island. When you were kind of raised there, did poetry find you there, or did you find it in later parts of your childhood outside of Staten Island?
So if we're just talking about the poetry part, I would say poetry found me pretty late in Staten Island. And that was when I went to the College of Staten Island. I discovered poetry probably like 18, 19 years old. I mean, I was always writing in journals, song lyrics, and things like that at a very early age. But in terms of finding poetry, I discovered E.E. Cummings at CSI, College of Staten Island. And that kind of changed things for me. That opened up a vista of just kind of like, oh my God, the things you can do on a page. Forget about spoken word. I was just very obsessed with the page at that point. And then I didn't know much about the Staten Island poetry scene at that point as an 18-year-old. I'm 47 right now. So that's like 30 years ago. And then what I did was I actually wound up moving. I moved out of Staten Island. I moved to Manhattan. I lived there for about 11 years. And I was on the New York City poetry scene for that time. And I focused in, I went to the New School. And I just focused in on the New York City poetry scene for a very, very long time. And then I moved back to Staten Island 10 years later, and then discovered the Staten Island scene, which was already blossomed and already doing its thing with with readings. I think at these places called the Full Cup. There was also this spoken word series called Eargasms. So when I was there, something was already happening.
Yeah.
And then I guess I moved there around 2010. I would say I moved back to Staten Island. But now it's a much different scene. It's, we've had some slam teams that have performed nationally. We've had some poets who've performed nationally. We've had some touring poets. We've had poets who've, not saying that poets haven't released books before, but we've had poets who've released books, chapbooks, performance videos, start their own thing. The Staten Island poetry scene is like alive and well right now. And poets are definitely doing their own things. So yeah, it's doing really well. There's a lot to there's a lot of different things that you can be a part of here right now.
Absolutely. Why do you think that's as kind of broadcasted to the world? I mean, like we had talked about just about a couple seconds ago when we began, Staten Island's the forgotten borough. Do you feel like more emphasis needs to be put, more of a light needs to be shown on the Staten Island poetry open mic scene for writing?
I do. I think I very much think so. I would love to see that happen. I think that myself and a few other people are that bridge to the other boroughs, which is great, but definitely more of a light should be shown. We had a poet laureate for 4 years, and then that program was dropped, which was really disappointing. That's something that I think would really bring light to the borough. I think that's something that's very, very needed, which is something that myself and a few other people are trying to bring back, but it's a very, very difficult process, whether it be the powers of be, the borough president's office, or whomever. I don't want to name drop here for things of that nature, but things of that would definitely bring more attention to Staten Island. We definitely try to bring other poets from the other boroughs here. We have a poetry video program that we do, something called Poetry in Motion, where we not only create poetry videos for poets of Staten Island, but poets from the other boroughs, where we pair you with other videographers. We get a grant to do this. We have a YouTube channel, so we can pay the videographers and the poets. They make these great poetry videos, and we try to enter them into contests. We have one that got into Button Poetry. We have some in film festivals. So these are ways that we try to get Staten Island to a little bit more on the map. We're lucky that, poets of yesteryear like Audre Lorde, who is an amazing poet, she lived here for a huge chunk of her life. So Audre Lorde's house is here. So we actually just did a reading. We do an annual reading with this great organization called Staten Island Out Loud. We did a reading in front of her, Audre Lorde's house, where we just read Audre Lorde poems. So things like that, we try to, that gets a little, excitement from the other boroughs. At least it gets noticed by some of the other boroughs. So things like that do get some attention. But, I think, with Staten Island and poetry, it's a slow burn. With the other boroughs, those things get a lot more attention. They have poetry laureates. They have a lot more, also with Staten Island, you need a boat to get here. You need the ferry, unless you have a car. For the other boroughs, it's a lot more accessible to get where you're going. So, it's challenging, but it's worth it. It's worth it.
Absolutely. No, for sure. And for those that, the Audre Lorde connection piece, maybe some people aren't even aware of that. So no, that's a fantastic thing. It's really great to hear what you all are able to do and what y'all are still continuing to do. I kind of want to move into a bit of your amazing, illustrious career. Now, like I had read in your bio, you're the winner of numerous grants from Staten Island Council of the Arts, NYC Department of Cultural Affairs. And one thing I want to kind of go into, tell us about, so you've won a grant from the NYC Office for the Prevention of Hate Crimes. Tell us a little bit about how did that come about? Was that a project that you did for the Prevention of Hate Crimes Unit for the NYC office? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that was a reading series we did. That's a reading series we do, something called WORDPLAY, which has actually had many different iterations. It was called Life Vest Poetry. It was called Advanced Poetry. It used to be a slam. Now it's something called WORDPLAY that we do out of a clothing store called Richmond Hood Company, which is a really great community-based store that does a lot of great community work within Staten Island. They not only, it sounds weird, oh, it's a clothing store, but it actually does, it produces clothing by local artists who design clothing, which is a really big deal. Plus, they do tons of community work within Staten Island, whether it be work for artists, murals, festivals. Like, they are really like a pinnacle of doing the important work on Staten Island. So I really have to like shout them out. And we've been doing a poetry reading series there for, it's got to be about like 10 years now. And we did a 3-month series there where we got this grant where we focused on doing a series where the theme was you had to bring poetry and work that focused on community-based writing. It focused on love, not hate. How could you bring writing that focused on like anti-gun, anti-violence? We brought in a live drummer, AJ Pantaleo. We had a live artist, Sean MacArthur, who created live art based on all the poetry that was created that night. If you could actually see, I'll even take it off my wall. This was some of the live art that was created. And this was like all the poetry that was read. And then the artist created based off of people's lines. They created like based on the poetry. And then right next door to Richmond Hood, there's a place called Bodega, which is a vegan bodega, which is all. So we took a bunch of that grant money and we, fed the community. Wow. So we were able to feed anyone who just came, even if they weren't participating. You need some food. We got some food for you. And we were able to pay the artists, the performers. It just became a big community event, showcasing and highlighting anti-violence, anti-gun prevention, and then also just focusing on just, peace and love. And this was a 3-month reading series. So we did this 3 times. I think this was last year. Wow.
No, that's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. What tell us about the kind of importance of that community-based poetry and finding that kind of community-based work, because a lot of people, I think, they strive to kind of, use their platform in terms of being a poet to not only just be work. So I would say, as a writer, you first and foremost, you do write for yourself, because that's where a lot of your words come from. But it's also, how do you now take your writing, your poetry, and use it as a form of public service? How important do you think that is as a poet, especially at this stage of your career? How important do you think that aspect of your storytelling is?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's extremely important. Every poet has a different mission or a different thing that they want.
Yeah.
For me, for someone like, the music I was raised on, the music that I love, like punk rock, and a lot of other music, but like, punk rock is very community oriented, grassroots. It's always about, not necessarily, and I'm not shunning anyone for making money or making a living off of poetry, art, or music. I think you absolutely should make money, make a living, or, but like also there's another aspect to this whole thing. And it's about trying to create platforms for other people, and elevating and highlighting other artists when you can. And community is a really big part of that. Sometimes you stumble doing that work, and sometimes you're successful. For me, a big part of that, where I got my learning chops from, was the first series, my first time hosting a poetry series was many moons ago in the city, which was an organization called ABC No Rio, which was in the East Village, which they did a lot of community work. They did a lot of protest work. They did a lot of great work within the confines of the East Village and beyond, doing massive community work outside of the arts, just like social work and stuff like that. And you just learn from that, and you learn from other poets. I learned a great deal from John Sands, who is a really great poet. He had hired me to do poetry workshops at a needle exchange on 34th Street many years ago. You learn, you learn from these organizations, from these this work that you do, that community is so important, that it's not always, it's about uplifting. Poetry can be about uplifting. And for me, for who I am and for what I think my role is, and I hate saying that, my role, but for what at least I need from this, and I even hate saying what I need, but like what calls to me in this work is being able to create some sort of community. But there is pitfalls to that too. Sometimes you can get a big ego or a big head when creating community. And that's happened to me before too. Sometimes you're like, oh, wow, look at all this. And you become elitist and you start thinking, oh, you can be a part of my community, but you can't be a part of my community. And that becomes very jarring at certain points. And I've had to check myself in those instances as well. So, finding the right balance in that can be something that you have to really, really negotiate within yourself. It's like a seesaw, and make sure you're doing this for the people around you and not just for yourself. That's what I wanted to say. It's not just about my needs. It's about the needs of the people around you. And sometimes it takes a second to realize that's what it's about.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. So tell us a bit about too, so as you've mentioned a little bit already, you're co-founder of Poetry in the Park, WORDPLAY, Creating Space, Poetry in Motion, kind of likening off what we've been talking about a little bit. I mean, I even want you to look at, from where you started in your career to being a poet to now. I mean, did you ever imagine that you'd be able to create these spaces outside of a page, outside of a chapbook, for people to really indulge and, really find themselves in poetry? Did you imagine that this is kind of the path that you would take to creating even more avenues for people to enjoy the word?
I don't think I imagined. I think in the beginning, I sound very self-righteous right now, but I think in the beginning I was, reading a lot of Bukowski, drinking, drugging. I was like that, that white lame poet who was like writing a lot of like, misogynistic poems, oh, the girl wronged me. And like, I wasn't in the right place. It took mentors. It took a long time to find that path. So no, I didn't imagine that. I think I've always been good of heart, whatever that means. I think besides these mentors, I've also I had a grandfather my mother's father, who he had a very small stint on Broadway, but he was always about performing, and he was always so good of heart. So I think I've always had that in me, always a caring in me. So I think that's always been there. But I think I never imagined that. I think it took a long time to get there, and I think I'm still getting there. I think you gave that whole list, and I think I'm still figuring all those things out. All those things are great, but I'm still figuring it out. I still don't think I've gotten to my peak yet, or I think I'm still climbing, which is great. I don't want to get to my peak. I think if I get to my peak, that's when I'll feel satisfied. And I don't want that satisfaction just yet,
For sure, for sure. No, I think a lot of people can relate to that. We are ever evolving, changing human beings. So it's our definitions of things 10 years ago are not our definition of things now, and how we perceive the world, especially as an artist. So now that's is quite the revelation. So I'm curious then, what are kind of the inspirations you see yourself kind of drawing from now? What stage of your writing life would you say you are in now? Like you said, you've been, not only are you a numerous grant winner, but you're also a professor. You're also a teacher, right? You're a publishing author. I mean, where do you see yourself in the whole scheme of things? What inspires one to write at this stage of your career?
Right now, I feel like I'm very self-absorbed. I'm writing a lot of, I'm right now. So my mom and her boyfriend passed away last year, and it's been very, very challenging. And the years leading up to that were extremely challenging, from just mental health to a lot of misdiagnosis to a lot of abuse.
Yeah.
And plus, I was in an 8-year relationship that was just crumbling. So plus the pandemic.
Yeah, a lot.
I have been really self-absorbed. I've been having a lot of mommy issues, and I've been really, I would say, for the past 5 or 6 years, writing a lot about my mom and our relationship, which has really been, I've been writing a lot of mom poems, a lot of sad mommy poems. So that has been a huge, huge part of what I've been writing lately, to a point where I've been frustrated. I feel like I've been in a loop, but that's what I've been stuck in lately, is writing those poems. I'd like to get out of that. I'm starting to get out of that. I think the political climate and the climate that we're in right now, I'm starting to get out of that a little. I'm starting to write more about the teaching experience, which I think I need to do, because that's helping me figure out teaching more. I love teaching. I teach at 3 different schools. I teach night classes right now. I teach these online 4-hour night classes right now, and that's tedious as hell, but it's also, I love it. I love working with youth. So, but writing about it helps. You figure out, oh, I could have did that better, or I really like what I did here. So I'm slowly getting out of that space, but I need to start. But lately, just writing a lot about my parents, their divorce, thinking about the my last relationship, writing about the new relationship that I'm in. Just a lot of a tangled web, and I'm trying to just untangle that web, so I can start writing about other things. Would be great to write about a sunset, or something like that.
Yeah,
Get out of my head a little.
for sure, for sure. No, we definitely right where we are. So that kind of goes into, and I'm curious about this title, your latest chapbook, Let Go, capital L, capital E, parentheses T, G-O, Let Go. Tell us a little bit, is that inspired kind of by what you just spoke about? And tell us a bit about that title, how that come about. It's a very interesting way to spell let go.
Yes. So I'm going to hold the book title up there, the cover, Let Go. So this is actually poems about Lego, as in the Lego bricks.
Wow.
They're all poems about Lego. But really, they're about the taking apart and building back up of relationships. And it's everything that I just said right now. So, during the pandemic, I'm sure we all know what was happening during the pandemic, the challenges everyone was facing. So during the pandemic, my mom was going through a lot, and because of the pandemic, trying to get her the care that she needed was just, it was ridiculous. It just was something that was non-existent. Couldn't go see her. Finally was able to put her in a facility, and that facility was just the worst. And I couldn't see her because of it was just, I'm not going to go through all the details right now, but it just made everything just crazy. And again, like I mentioned, the relationship that I was in, that was falling apart. I was also teaching at that time online. That was probably the only thing that was really saving me. So there was just so much happening at that time. And during that whole time period, I had started playing with Lego again, because I just needed something to just get me out of that space. Like, I was building things, it was helping me with my anxiety. I deal with anxiety. I'm sure you can tell I'm like using my hands a lot and stuff. But it was just helping me. It was helping me with the calm of just being stuck, just in my apartment. So this chapbook really analyzes the falling apart of one relationship, the building back up of another relationship. And then it also looks at my parents' relationship. They got divorced when I was 4. And then, my mom's mental health struggles during that time and beyond. I don't know, for those out there who had parents who are divorced, sometimes you're kind of forced to pick a side in that. And that's kind of what happened to me. So I think I was estranged from feeling positive things from my father. So I think in writing this, I started realizing that, my father and my relationship actually, I started building that relationship up, especially when my mom got sick. My father and my relationship got better. So this book is about that building that back up again. And then there's some funny poems in here too that I added in there as well to break up a little bit of the monotony of all that, and then leading to, my mom's passing, and, just reminding myself that through all of this, that, my goal in life is to always keep building, which is the theme, hopefully, of this whole conversation with these things that I do, whether it comes to writing poems or, doing grants, teaching these great, Poetry in the Park that I co-facilitate with Matt Figs, or Poetry in Motion, or all these different things. A press that I do, Great Weather for Media, that I've been doing for about 11 to 12 years, NYSAI Press, is that it's always about building. And, and that I can't forget that. So.
No, absolutely. No, we building from your birth to the grave, right? We are constantly building. It's a constant kind of stepping blocks. No, so I love that kind of metaphor, comparing it to Legos. Tell us, that's available worldwide? Where can people buy that piece of work?
Yeah, I think only at neuronauticpress.com. Okay. I can share. I guess the link later, or I
Yes,
don't know.
yes.
Yeah.
The link will be down below. No worries. We will get that link.
Okay.
Awesome. So awesome to hear. Thank you so much for that, Thomas. Speaking of building, so you know what? You were actually where we met. You were actually, for those that don't know, and you would have heard before this episode, the Poet Speaks podcast is now a show streaming now on the Heritage Channel, the Archaeology Channel's new streaming service, as well as on some local TV as well, cable TV. So Thomas, tell us, you were part of the first season of the Poet Speaks with Amanda Eke TV show. Tell us a little bit, tell the folks how your experience was with that. That was the first time we had met in New York City filming the show. You were in the episode Spoken Word in the Village, talking about the great effect that Greenwich Village has had on some amazing writers, yourself included. Tell us a little bit about your experience filming the show.
Yeah, I thought the filming of it was fantastic. It went so smooth. You guys were so professional. You pampered me. It was great. But it was a great experience. We did it at the Poet's House, so I loved being there, which was great. Even though it's not part of Greenwich Village, it's still part of the poetry community of NYC. And I think, like I said in our interview, I think like Greenwich Village, the Village, NYC, it all bleeds and melts into each other. I think the experience was amazing. I'm like excited to see what the outcome of it all is. You know, it's great to work with Reggie Kabiko because, you know, he's just a mad poet who is just so influential to not only me, but to so many people just like, you know, around the country and the world. You know, so it was just a great experience. How did you feel about the experience?
No, I felt great. It's you know, it was an interesting experience, you know, when you're executive producer, host, as well as directing, it's hard to be in the moment to enjoy all of it. But, you know, when folks hear this podcast episode, we are on the other side. So we are doing good. It's premiered and everything, but it's definitely a lot. But we're so thankful to you and Reggie for opening up your space, sharing your amazing words. For those listening, Thomas has a very, very powerful piece that he shares, a piece of poetry, and he has a very, very powerful interview as well. And we do kind of a tour of how Greenwich, that village, the idea of the village, how it's transpired to so many places in New York City. So there's some very inspiring talks and some inspiring things people have to say. So a big shout out to you, Thomas. Thank you for appearing on the Poet Speaks podcast, the Poet Speaks with Amanda Eke, which is now the TV show. So we are excited for folks to hear that, not only hear you on this podcast, but also see you on the show. So thank you so much. A big shout out to you for doing that. And everyone go check it out on Heritage Broadcast, streaming everywhere, worldwide. All right. So Thomas, tell us, as we're kind of wrapping up here, you know, you've had such an illustrious career thus far. You know, but I always like to take it back. I mean, was there a seminal moment in your life when you knew you were a writer?
Ooh, wow. I don't even know if I'm a writer just yet. I mean, you know, I mean, I guess I know I'm a writer. I don't know if there's a seminal moment. You know, I guess when your first book is published, you can look at it that way, I guess, as like a benchmark. I don't know if there's a you know, I don't know. I think it's just you're part of the process. You're part of, you know, I think it's just showing up and just being part of a community. You know, I don't think there is necessarily a specific time where I'm like, oh, I'm a writer now. You know, it could be a first publication. But I don't think there was a time where I was just like, yes, you know, this is I'm definitely a writer now. I think I can't think of a specific time. I do feel it now. You know, I feel I'm a poet. I do think I'm a mid-level poet. I'll say that. Like, I think there are tiers of poetry. There are those popular poets who'll just post something. They'll get all the likes. They'll get the paycheck. Like, I'm a mid-level poet. I'll say that about myself, a mid-level writer. I'm just enough, and I'll leave it at that.
Fair enough. Well, we all think you're more than enough, buddy. So we appreciate the humbleness, but we do got to say we think you're more than enough. All right, Thomas. Well, last question for you. We ask everyone on the Poet Speaks podcast. Thomas, why do you need to get your words out?
Ooh, so I know the cliche response will be, it's therapeutic. It's definitely about getting something off your chest. And there's that connecting with people. I think that's part of it. But then there's also, there's the creative muscle inside of me, whatever that muscle is, the creativity. I think that's part of it. Wanting to, why does a painter paint? They also want to show that finished product, that creativity. You want to share that thing. Some people, write journal entries, which is great. I love that. But how do you turn that journal entry into something creative?
Yeah.
So there's that. And then there's something, I'm a huge George Carlin fan. Um, and I think something he always says, and I agree with it. There's that other thing inside of you, look at me, look at me, look at what I've done. And I think that's part of it too. Maybe it's a narcissistic thing inside of you, but look at me. Look at something I've done, whether that look at me is self-centered or look at me, I need emotional support, or look at me reflected in you. Again, that's part of that connection thing. So I think all of those things are a part of it.
Sure. All right. Well, Thomas, thank you so much for amazing sharing your words of wisdom, dropping some amazing gems for us on this podcast today. And before we wrap up, tell us what's next for you in 2024, as well as where can folks find all of your amazing work? Drop any links for the website, socials, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So what's next for me? Yeah, we've got our season 3 of Poetry in Motion dropping September 28th, I believe. We have 8 amazing poets, everyone from I'm trying to think now, Peggy Robles Alvarado to Marissa Tornello. I know I'm missing so many people. Matt Figs, Sin. We're doing 5-minute shorts as part of those. So that's going to be happening. We have our next wordplay event that's going to be happening in September as well. We have Roya Marsh featuring, which is going to be fantastic. I'm so excited about that. We're going to be starting our next Creating Space series of workshops. That is a free online workshop series. I'm so excited about that. So that'll start September 4th. And that's something else I'm really excited about too, that everything that I try to produce is free. There's no money exchanging hands. The artists get paid, but you guys, no one has to pay to get in. If you want to donate something, that's great. August 21st at the Living Room NYC, which is on 30th Street, I think 30th Street. Ngoma Hill, if anyone knows who that is, an amazing poet, will be teaching a free poetry workshop. He'll be including music and sound doing that workshop. That'll be from 7 to 9, and that's part of the Great Weather for Media workshop series. So those are just some of the things that will be happening. All of those are free events. My social media things are at Thomas Fucaloro, Instagram. That's where you could find all the flyers and stuff for all of those amazing things.
Awesome. All right. Well, that is so great to hear. A lot of good stuff coming out and coming up. Everyone, Thomas's links will be down below in the description box, no matter where you listen to this podcast, no matter the streaming service worldwide. All of Thomas's links will be down in the description box below. All right, Thomas, I enjoyed you. Thanks so much for being a guest on the Poet Speaks podcast.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And again, everyone go check out all of Thomas's amazing work. Everyone check out the Poet Speaks podcast and the Poet Speaks with Amanda Eke on TV, streaming services. Everyone, all right, thank you so much. Bye-bye, everyone.